Okay, my name is Steve Cramer, and I am the business librarian at UNC-Greensboro. And before that, my other NC Live overlap with work was at Perkins Library at Duke, where I was reference librarian at Duke University. So my experience with NC Live, it really began, I guess, when I was at Duke, but I didn't really get involved until I was at UNCG. And largely, my involvement has been centered on an organization called BLINC, B-L-I-N-C, Business Librarians in North Carolina. And we did form 2003, eventually became a section of NCLA. And eventually we decided we wanted to help, whether they wanted it or not, NC Live with ideas about what would be the best resources to enable our work as educators, as business students, as promoters of small businesses, entrepreneurs, at public library angle, and to enable job hunters from any kind of library. So we decided to start discussing the best mixture of resources that we think public libraries and academic libraries should have through NC Live, if NC Live had the money and resources to do that. At that time, to talk to NC Live, you really had to go through your director of your library, and that director then went into the appropriate committee. But then eventually Tim Rogers was hired, and whether it was his own influence or whether there are other factors, NC Live became a little more open for outside work, and Tim Rogers came to one of our workshops. And he was there in our discussions, participating in our discussions. We were ranking and discussing the best resources NC Live should offer. And it was just very rewarding having Tim there as the NC Live head, listening and learning and nodding his head, contributing ideas and helping us with sticky points regarding budgets, but generally being open and interested in getting our feedback directly, as opposed to having to go through our library directors and never really knowing if NC Live ever even looked at our documents. So that was when BLINC and NC Live started getting to be more like partners. BLINC and NC Live are focusing on now is how all libraries, particularly in this age where people often question the funding of libraries and maybe even question the validity of a library in the 21st century, is promoting that both libraries and NC Live together as partners really can play a big role in economic development and helping job creation, supporting or growing existing businesses, helping job hunters get jobs, and of course helping business students in academia do well in school and do well in their projects, many of which are economic development projects. So the main point is libraries are not only places to go for literacy, but we also are players at the table with economic development issues. So it's basically BLINC partnering with NC Live to provide economic development support. And that's really been, I think, one of my, definitely has been my favorite interaction with NC Live. I think it is easier for libraries to work together as members under NC Live or as an NC Live group. Let me give you one example. It's something called Ask BLINC, and it is a shared email business reference service that NC Live coordinates and monitors, but that the business librarians in the state respond to when needed. So it's something that we first considered doing on our own, but again, given that BLINC is a group of librarians from all different institutions, without like a central head who has a statewide focus, it's been hard for us to really pursue that. A library that has any small business owner or manager or entrepreneur or student who needs business help but can't answer that question on their own can email askblink@nclive.org. And NC Live monitors it, and if it's a simple question or if it's an access issue question, like regarding simply map profiles, NC Live will answer that for the library. But if it's something that goes beyond NC Live's business research skills set, then they will email, someone in NC Live will email all of BLINC. And we will all, usually I think within a few hours, get back and say, here's some recommended sources or strategies or tools that this library can use to answer this patron's question. So I think that's a wonderful service that unites us all through simple coordination of NC Live, but also supports the goals of BLINC. We use an expression in the business school, whether in the class I help with, of leaving money on the table. When you have a wonderful opportunity or wonderful resources or data that can really further the goals of your student work or a business plan or say a small business marketing agenda you have, and you don't use that, you ignore the opportunity, you don't use those resources that help you make better decisions, you're leaving money on the table. And if, this might sound kind of pushy, but if you are a library card holder in North Carolina or a student at a UNC campus or the private schools that buy into NC Live, and you don't use NC Live fully, you're leaving money at the table. You've got wonderful resources there in terms of researching companies, doing market analysis, finding articles from trade journals, as well as the literary and historical and the other content that NC Live provides. That gives you wonderful tools for education, for business development, for your own private literacy interests and hobbies. And if you're not using those resources through nclive.org or through your public library or through your school library, you're really missing out on opportunities. And that's, I think, one message I want to give all everyone in the state.